the bat, we have a great guest, a guy who served the state of Minnesota well and looking to serve it in the next capacity as possibly the governor for this great state of Minnesota. It is Jeff Johnson, who is on the campaign trail. Jeff, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Lee. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I know it's been a little while since we've had a chance to chat, and I always look forward to our chats at the state fair and things like that. But it's a busy time of year for you right now.
It is. It's been crazy, but in a really good way. And we're actually on our way up to Mille Lacs right now to have a big town hall.
Great.
So we are en route.
Well, I'm glad you're taking time to give us a call and sit and chat a little bit about the issues and about Minnesota and the kind of vision you have for Minnesota as our next governor. Again, if you want more information, it's johnsonforgovernor.org. So Jeff, as you're touring the state now, I know you've been on the campaign trail a lot and all around the state. What are you finding, or what are you hearing? And it might even be two different answers. Kind of here in the Twin Cities or even in the outstate areas, some of the big issues that people are concerned about.
It doesn't really matter where we go. There seems to be kind of the same issues that arise. The biggest issue is a very broad one. People are just kind of tired of business as usual. They are tired of the way that government has been treating them the past decade or two, and they're looking for some very fundamental changes. They are sick of the legislative process. They're tired of the fact that every single session seems to end exactly the same way, with chaos and a backroom deal and these huge garbage omnibus bills that nobody knows what's in them. And then specifically, I hear a lot about health care, and I hear a lot about spending and taxes.
So, Jeff, what are some of the things that you see to help, that you can do, that you bring to the table that will kind of help break up some of that, business as usual, or as Trump puts it, draining the swamp? Yep.
Well, that's kind of the main theme of my campaign is we talk about how we are going to change the culture in government. We have state agencies, setting aside the legislative process, which we can talk about in a second, but we have state agencies in this state right now that many of the employees truly seem to believe that their job is to control and direct and tell everybody else how to live their lives or raise their kids or farm their land, when their real purpose is solely to serve the people who pay their salaries. And I think, I'll be dedicated to that every single day as governor. And I think that that's how you change it. If we don't change that culture, we can't really clean up the system. And that means changing some of the personnel. It doesn't mean just having different commissioners. It means taking some of the people who, have maybe been there for decades and saying, if you can't understand your role is to serve, then maybe it's time to move on, and we're going to put someone in there who does understand that.
Yeah, I know in some of your principles and looking at your website and just knowing you for the number of years that I've known you, when you look at the Constitution, for the state of Minnesota, it's pretty clear what government, just like the Constitution of our country, there's certain authority that is granted to the governor, to the legislature by that Constitution. And I think, I know you are somebody that follows that, somebody that's just like you're talking about. We want to have, we don't want to grow government. Government is there to serve the people. So putting the best people in, if there's dead weight or things that need to be trimmed, it might sometimes look like a hard choice, but in the long run will be better for the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some absolutely wonderful people working in state government. I would say the majority of them fit that role, and they're doing important things and they're doing them well. But we seem to have this element pretty much in all of the agencies who don't understand that. The DNR, the MPCA, the Department of Education, Met Council here in the cities. Mm-hmm. And it is time to change that. And, I believe that if you don't change that culture, I could be governor for 4 or 8 years and make a whole bunch of policy changes, but they're not going to last because, the people who are implementing this are those in these agencies. And some of them have this attitude that, well, I'm going to outlast the governor, or I'm going to outlast these legislative leaders. And, once they're gone, we'll just go back to the same old way again. And we just can't put up with that anymore.
Yeah, we're talking with Jeff Johnson. He is running for governor of Minnesota. He is the Republican-endorsed candidate. for governor. Of course, the primary coming up on the 14th of August, so it's just a few weeks away. So we're really glad to have you here as you're touring the state. You can learn more at johnsonforgovernor.org. Bringing up some of those agencies that you just mentioned, the one that I have a huge issue with is the Met Council, Metropolitan Council. Yep. An organization that really we, the people, have no insight into it. There's no way that we can do anything about it. What is your thoughts on Met Council? And since you brought that up.
Yeah, well, I talk about the Met Council a lot. That's kind of part of my life on the Hennepin County Board. They have, it's an unelected body. It's appointed by the governor. It has taxing authority. It has an $80 million tax levy, a $1 billion budget. It has power to take people's property through eminent domain, and it is completely out of control. It essentially bullies elected city council members and mayors about how they build out their cities.
Right.
And I don't happen to believe that we can fix the Met Council. There are proposals out there that would make it a little bit better, but it's not going to solve the problem. I truly believe we have to dismantle the Met Council. We need some sort of regional authority to accept federal transportation dollars, road dollars. And I think having a regional authority to deal with wastewater management, the sewer system, that makes sense. They actually do a really good job of that.
Yep.
But outside of that, we don't need an unelected body to tell cities how they can grow or to deal with issues of equity or disparities, which has become their top priority now. We have elected officials that can make those decisions and that are accountable to the people. So, a very high priority for me is to get rid of the Met Council and start over with a body that doesn't have taxing authority and is very, very limited in their power.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I mean, the reach of the Met Council has gone, basically outside the metropolitan area. Their scope beginning to grow, and especially being an unelected body, it really does. We, the people, don't have a say, and especially if they're able to tax us. So I like your approach to that wholeheartedly. Again, Jeff Johnson is our guest, running for governor here in Minnesota. The Republican-endorsed candidate, johnsonforgovernor.org is the website. And I know another big topic here in the state of Minnesota is education. We've got a great education system, but we still seem to be stuck at times in how we're going to move forward to provide the best education we can for our kids.
Yeah, and there are kind of two separate issues here. One, because we do better in K-12 education than most states.
Yep.
I don't think we do good enough, but we are better than most. But there are two separate issues. There are schools that are just miserably failing our kids year after year after year. They tend to be centered in urban areas, particularly in North Minneapolis. And that's been the case for 40 or 50 years. We've had one of the biggest achievement gaps, graduation gaps, essentially, between students of color and white students in Minnesota for decades. And I mean, I just think that's unacceptable, and it's embarrassing. And we've been wringing our hands about it since the 1980s, and frankly, throwing money at it, and it's not changing anything. So obviously, that's not the answer, and we need to start doing something else. I happen to believe that giving parents choice, actual choice in their kids' education, is a very important first step, because those are the people that know best what's good for their kids.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of other tools you can use, too, to give parents power to actually change the schools that their kids are already in. Because most parents I know would rather not get a voucher and send their kid, from Minneapolis to Woodbury. They'd rather change the school in the neighborhood. And there are a bunch of ways that we can do that. And my belief is you just keep trying things until you figure it out, because almost every other state in the country does it better than us, which is terrible.
Yeah.
And the other piece are the schools that are doing fine, or even some schools that are doing extremely well in the state. And for them, I look at our K-12 education funding formula, and it's just an abomination. No one understands it. And it's because it has come from decades of political deals where they had to essentially buy votes to pass a K-12 education omnibus bill, and you've got all these funding streams and strings attached, and locally elected school board members have almost no control over how to spend the money. And so I would like to see us just radically simplify that formula, move much closer to per pupil funding with maybe a few special streams in there because there are different needs in different places. Start eliminating some of the many mandates that the state puts on our local school boards. And I think that is the best thing we can do, because the closer you can get decision making about our kids to parents and local officials, the better.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and it kind of goes into a lot of different categories. I'm a believer in liberty and individual rights, and I think parents do know what's best for our kids. And I think we as parents and even a local school board or local community much more in touch with what's going on than the government, or when we look at how government is growing. And I know that's one of the things that is a big deal for you, is allowing that. People, we know how to spend our dollars better than the government does in choosing in making choices for our kids' education. Right in line with that. We got to run to break here. We're joined with Jeff Johnson. He is the Republican-endorsed candidate for governor of Minnesota. JohnsonForGovernor.org is the website. You can go, you can look, meet him, find the issues, and show your support, too, for Jeff Johnson through the website there. It's Lee Michaels Live here on the Twin Cities Christian Voice, AM 980 The Mission. Come back, a couple of other issues I want to bring up again. Immigration, a hot-button topic, especially here in Minnesota as well. We can talk about that, talk about health care plans that Jeff Johnson has in play that he would like to see happen here for the state of Minnesota when Lee Michaels Live continues.
This is Pastor Don Anderson with Christ for People with Developmental Disabilities. 1 Samuel 16:7 says, God sees the heart. That's our ministry scripture motto. It's also the name of our new radio program. I'll be your host as we celebrate our brothers and sisters in Christ who happen to have disabilities. Please join us. Tell a friend. Remember, God sees the heart.
God Sees the Heart, Sunday afternoons at 3 on AM 980 The Mission.
Being a good steward with my money is more than just knowing what to give. It also means being wise about what to buy. That's why I bought a new Hyundai Kona from Inver Grove Hyundai during their epic summer sales event. My Hyundai Kona is fully equipped with all the latest tech and safety features. It's perfect for my family, whether I'm going up north to the cabin or heading to church on Sunday. Wherever the road leads me, my Kona from Inver Grove Hyundai takes me there in style. And because it's a Hyundai, it's reliable and efficient to run. That leaves me more to give to my favorite ministries and causes. And every new Hyundai comes with America's best warranty, 10-year, 100,000-mile limited powertrain and Hyundai Assurance. You deserve a great car buying experience, and that's what you'll get at the all-new Inver Grove Hyundai. Sunshine, smiles, and great deals. Hurry in for their epic summer savings event. The all-new Inver Grove Hyundai, helping you be wise with your stewardship. Find them online at invergrovehyundai.com.
There is a devastating disease crippling children, disfiguring them, leaving once beautiful faces marked with the unmistakable signs of leprosy, causing them to live a life of pain, shame, and isolation. But you can help American Leprosy Missions find, diagnose, and cure these children. You can stop leprosy. Right now, you have an incredible opportunity to help and heal children who are suffering. Because it costs only $90 to cure leprosy in 3 people, you can be the source of their healing. Jesus said, freely you have received, freely give. Give now to help those suffering with leprosy. Call American Leprosy Missions right now, 800-979-1980. 800-979-1980. That's 800-979-1980. Or give online at StopLeprosyNow.com.
Traffic from the AM 980 The Mission Traffic Center. This report brought to you by Summit Orthopedics. Is joint pain making you feel like a spectator in your own life? Summit Orthopedics offers both non-surgical treatments and joint replacement innovations to help guide you back to your healthy and active life. Get started at summitortho.com. Forest Lake backed up I-35 northbound. Forest Lake split to Highway 8 north of Twin Cities. Stop and go on I-35 southbound 240th Street to Highway 8. Downtown Minneapolis backed up 35W southbound Hiawatha Avenue to 5th Avenue. Otsego cabin traffic. Highway 101 is stop and go northbound County Road 37 to US 10. End up in a crash, Highway 610 westbound at Noble Parkway. That's the latest traffic on AM 980, The Mission.
Yeah, we got the motor running here on Lee Michaels Live, the Twin Cities Christian Voice. So does our guest, Jeff Johnson. He's cruising the great state of Minnesota on the campaign trail, and he joins us now. Jeff, thank you so much for being with us. And again, if people want more information, it's johnsonforgovernor.org. It was mentioned before the break, I wanted to get to two other topics here in Minnesota. One of them being healthcare and keeping track of healthcare. I know Jesse, one of our listeners, was interested specifically in healthcare and especially kind of geared toward those people with disabilities. But how do we continue? I mean, the problem we have here in Minnesota is we had a pretty good healthcare system before the federal government and Obamacare got involved. How do we get back, or what are your plans to really kind of revamping or taking a look at healthcare here in Minnesota?
So we didn't have a perfect system. There was much that could have been better, but we were better than any state in the country. And you could talk to almost any state, and they would say we look to Minnesota kind of as the starting point. And so I think our starting point after the ACA should be to start there and then improve. And so for people who need help, for people who have pre-existing conditions, for example, and can't find something in the private market, or because for whatever reason they just can't afford what is available in the private market, we had something called the high-risk pool. It's called MCHA. We were the first state in the country that had a high-risk pool. And what the high-risk pool said was, if you can't find coverage in the private market, then you can find it in the high-risk pool. Your premium cannot be more than X percent higher than what the average person in the private market pays, which is, like 15 or 20% higher. Mm-hmm. And then the rest is going to be subsidized by both the insurers and by the taxpayers. And it wasn't a cheap program, but Minnesotans were willing to do it because that was helping some of the most vulnerable people in our state. And we did it better than any state in the country. And the Obamacare ACA made that illegal. We had to get rid of that. And now states all over the United States are saying, we should create a high-risk pool if only the law would allow us to. So that, for me, is a starting point. And then from there, I would say for those people who are receiving subsidized insurance of some sort, that we should give them some choices. It goes back to the whole school choice issue. Let's give these people a voucher and say, listen, you can use that voucher to buy into Minnesota Care or some other government program if that's what you want, or you can take that voucher into the private market if something out there better fits you. So to me, when you give people who are receiving benefits more power over what they're receiving, it's better for them, and it's probably better for the taxpayer in the end because they might find a better deal that works better.
Yeah.
And then the other half of that is those who aren't subsidized, which is still the vast majority of people who have either insurance through their employer or in the individual market. And that is all about more competition and more choices for people. And because there's not much competition right now in the market, and we see places in greater Minnesota where there is literally no competition on the MNsure exchange. There's one company in there, and it's because government has created so many coverage mandates to say every policy has to cover these 102 things, whether you think you would ever need them or not. And my thought is, if you're paying for your insurance and you think a policy with more limited coverage fits your needs better, why, as governor, do I get to say you can't do that? I know better. So I would start rolling back those mandates and try to create more competition and choice for people.
Well, I think that's a great idea. It's going to, open up the free market, should lower costs, and give people the choice. I get frustrated at times when I look at coverage we have and things that were included. We had a home birth, and that wasn't included by insurance. And had we gone to the hospital, probably would have cost us $10,000-$12,000, but our midwife was going to be out of her pocket. Likewise, if we're done having kids, do you need to have the prenatal care aspects of insurance companies? So being able to be kind of more a la carte and have those choices, I think will be better for all of us. And I like the approach you're taking to that.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, it just it's exactly the opposite of what each of the DFL candidates is talking about right now, which is they all have said they want to get to single-payer health care at some point. And I can guarantee you after the primary, they won't use those that term anymore. They'll say, well, it's a Minnesota Care buy-in or something that sounds really good, but they're all on record saying they want single-payer health care in Minnesota. And what that means is everyone who has health insurance now through their employer, that is gone. It's illegal to have private insurance. You get the one government plan that everybody gets. It's the VA for everybody, and that has not worked well.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not a fan of that. And watching this, and that's why I like to focus on the things that you're bringing to the table and you do and articulate it so well, and really realizing what the differences are between you being a governor of Minnesota and what those Democrats or those on the left would be bringing. And when we look at what's happening with the economy nationally here, we haven't even got into taxes and things like that,
right.
Taxes and spending here in Minnesota. Maybe we'll get to that next break. But it really being accountable for the people of Minnesota, I like a lot of what you have to say. I want to take a minute here, too, to talk about immigration. You know, nationally, it's a hot button topic. Here in Minnesota, we've had great success and we've had some issues. When we look at a lot of the Hmong population who integrated fairly well here in the Twin Cities when they came through in the 70s and 80s, and we have a large Somali population now, and immigration is always on the forefront here. So what do you have? How do you see us proceeding here in Minnesota?
So a couple things. Number one, when you're talking about legal immigration, that's a federal issue, and I actually tend to agree largely with the direction that President Trump wants to move, which is to make legal immigration more merit-based. I think that's a positive thing for the country. And obviously, with illegal immigration, I think we should do whatever we can to crack down on that. Each of the Democrats have also said they want to become a sanctuary state, which says the state would not allow the federal government to do anything about illegal people in our state. And I obviously wouldn't want to go there. The more difficult issue that's come up is refugee resettlement. Right. And we have in Minnesota a really proud and welcoming and generous history with respect to refugees, people who are coming from countries that are war-torn or oppressive and want to come to America for a new life. We've taken in more refugees than any state per capita. In fact, I think the last report I saw said Minnesota has 13% of the country's refugees, and we have 2% of the country's population. So we have been extremely welcoming and generous. And there are some, as you mentioned, some wonderful success stories to tell from 20, 30, 40 years ago. But lately, there have been some real concerns raised, particularly about some of the refugee resettlement from predominantly Muslim countries. Mm-hmm. And Somalia in particular, St. Cloud is kind of in the middle of that whole thing. And the response to that from people who raise the issues and say, we want to know what the cost of this really is, the response is, well, you're racist, you're white supremacist, and you don't care about people like we do. And I don't think that's the right response. I think the right response is, okay, if you have a concern, then let's figure out what the cost is, and let's have that discussion. Let's have that debate. So I have said that we should actually end our participation in that program until we actually get this figured out. And right now we don't. The legislative auditor was charged with estimating what the cost is, and they said we don't have the information. There's no way to figure that out until we start having government collect that information. Their only estimate was that it's hundreds of millions of dollars a year in cost. And when you talk about, when I think about the success stories, I look at what has been happening recently. There was a report out of St. Cloud State where they found that Somali refugees, the male Somali refugees, have an employment rate in Minnesota right now of 41%. Something is wrong with that picture, and we got to figure out what's going on there, because that is not the American dream. Right. That is not, that's not success. And so we got to figure out, with the refugees we already have here, how can we help them succeed? How can we help them find meaningful work? Because they're clearly at least one population that's not happening with. And I think we should focus on that in the short term rather than bringing even more in. Yeah,
I would agree. I mean, again, we as Christians, we understand so many things. We understand forgiveness. We understand reconciliation. There's so many things that we can do and be part of this situation to help heal and get past. I think focusing on that job aspect is a smart approach as well. And it's not always an easy situation, but I know those on the Democrat side side would love to see, the sanctuary state, as you mentioned, and it would just kind of exacerbate some of the issues that we face here without really dealing with the things that will help make Minnesota better, that we grow together and have all these communities coming together.
And one of the biggest problems we have in Minnesota right now is we can't have a discussion about some of these issues. Anything that is even remotely related to race or religion or sexual preference is it's just off limits. You can't have a discussion because if you don't think the right way politically, you are going to get shut down as somebody who's hateful or whatever.
Yeah.
And that has to change. We have to be able to discuss these things. And I have found in trying to discuss refugee resettlement in what I think is a decent and honest way, I mean, the vile responses we get, it just blows my mind. And I understand why people just shy away from saying what they think because of the response you get. I think a governor can help with that. I think a governor can work towards actually discussing some of these really difficult issues in a way that is, not about screaming and yelling and accusing, but saying, all right, where are you coming from? Tell me, but now you got to listen to where I'm coming from. And, let's see if we can find any common ground at all. I don't know if it's possible, but we ought to try.
At times it does feel like that it's going to be tough. We've got a divide in this country and even in this state along a lot of different levels, whether it's race, socioeconomic, gender, life issues, all these things, religious liberty issues. And I think you're right. The approach to allowing people, we do have the freedom to worship as we do. We have the freedom to, should be the free to exchange ideas and discuss it without being pigeonholed or accused of being something that many of us aren't. So,
right. Yep.
Very good. All right, we're joined with Jeff Johnson. He is running for governor in Minnesota. JohnsonForGovernor.org is the state. He is the website. He is the Republican-endorsed candidate, and looking forward to getting into some of the issues again. Jeff can stay with us for another segment here. We'll open up the phone lines, too. If you've got a question, we can take a few of those. 651-289-4499, 651-289-4499. It's Lee Michaels Live with Jeff Johnson running for governor here in the state of Minnesota. We'll be right back.
Why don't you break my heart till it moves my hands and feet?
A couple witnesses angels at a dangerous car crash. A man is healed on his deathbed and given another chance to live. Two Christian pastors perform an exorcism on a psychic possessed by demons. A man thought his baby died until the impossible happened. These miracles are true and are chronicled in the first book of a new series, When God Happens, True Stories of Modern-Day Miracles. When God Happens is compiled and edited by best-selling authors Angela Hunt and Bill Myers. Hunt and Myers came together to remind Christians God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. God has not turned his back on us or left us to our own devices. If you have an exciting miracle you'd like to see shared in the next edition of When God Happens, visit the website at whengodhappens.com. Get your copy now of best-selling authors Angela Hunt and Bill Myers' miraculous new book, When God Happens, True Stories of Modern-Day Miracles. Available now at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
TwinCitiesTuitions.com has been helping families for over 7 years get into the school of their dreams. We have placed over 90 kids into private education, including Stacy's son.
I have to say that this was an answer to prayer. This program made it possible for my son to transition into 9th grade into a wonderful school. Dealing with the station, particularly Alyssa, has been such a blessing.
Education is one of the most important decisions that you can make as a parent.
The difference that I've seen in my son in a Christian education is a confidence that can only come from Jesus Christ. He stands firm in the truth, he knows what he believes, and he's going to know that Jesus is the answer.
Don't pay more than you need to for your child's first year of private school. Call me, Alyssa Brecken, at 651-289-4406. or visit our website at TwinCitiesTuitions.com.
How much do you spend on your pest control each year? $200, $300, or even $500 or more? What if I said you could spend less than $25 a year even less with promo code RADIO20. Then listen up. G'day, I'm Scott from Plug-in Pest Free, and yes, it is possible to rid your home or business of unwanted pests for less than $25 per year. The answer is Plug-in Pest Free. Our best seller, the Plug-in Pest Free Pro, will cover up to 4,000 square feet. Now that's fair dinkum. For just a one-time cost of only $249, even less with promo code RADIO20, you'll be pest-free for years to come. Log on to gopestfree.com today. Use promo code RADIO20 and start driving those pests away. Don't spray and regret. Plug in and forget. Gopestfree.com. That's gopestfree.com. Promo code RADIO20.
Hey, if you're like me, you enjoy the outdoors, and one of the great places to enjoy outdoors is the Minnesota Horse and Hunt Club. They're a great sponsor of the program, and if you've ever been out there, you know what a beautiful facility it is. If you just want to go out and have some fun, shoot some sporting clays, they've got 5 different courses there, 30 different scenarios. Maybe you'd like to get the membership, take advantage of their upland hunting privileges they have there. You also get access to the ranges as well, pheasants, turkeys, partridge, ducks, other upland birds, all available there at the Minnesota Horse and Hunt Club. Plus, the restaurant Traeger's open to the public for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. They've got some great dishes, including the bacon-wrapped pheasant bites. You have to try that. Plus, they can handle your banquets, your weddings, your corporate outings, maybe your men's group or Bible study. You're just looking for a great time to go out and fellowship. They have it all right there at the Minnesota Horse and Hunt Club. You can check out all the details at horseandhunt.com.
.435 here in the Kingdom Builders Roofing Studio. Thank you for joining us here on The Mission and Lee Michaels Live. The show will continue in a moment. A big thank you to everybody who has given to American Leprosy Missions. The money you give saves lives and it spreads the gospel. This organization has been around for 100 years, over 100 years, because of the good work they do. That's why they have maintained that reputation for that long. You can help them out. They can't do the good work they do without your help. The number to give to American Leprosy Missions and save a life is 800-979-1980. 800-979-1980. Pleasant out there now, about 76, mostly sun, and 80 for Saturday. Now back to Lee Michaels in the Kingdom Builders Roofing Studio. Lee?
Hey, thank you, John, and thank you for listening. Joining us today on the program is Jeff Johnson, running for governor for Minnesota. He is the Republican-endorsed candidate, and we're glad for him taking time to join us on the show this afternoon. We've got a couple questions, too. We'll get to a few phone calls here real quick. 651-289-4499, 651-289-4499. Let's start with Dan in West St. Paul. John, you ready? Hey, Dan, welcome to Lee Michaels Live.
Yeah.
Your question.
Here we go. Hi.
Great. Your question for Jeff.
Yes. Oh, hey, Jeff. Man, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have Jeff running. You know, when Tim Pawlenty was governor, it didn't seem he really made the case for conservative government, though it's small government, you know, it's good for everybody. But if you could articulate specifically how you'd be different from Tim Pawlenty, you know, because I know a lot of spending rose, a lot of taxes went up. You made a lot of green energy mandates. And my other question was, I understand Donna Bergstrom was not allowed on a public radio show because of her political affiliation, even though the show was about people of color. Is that true?
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for calling in, Dan. I appreciate it. So, Tim's a friend of mine, but we differ. I think we differ kind of fundamentally. There's a lot of specific policies we differ on. I have said that I will not sign a budget that is larger than the last, and Tim grew the budget 7 of his 8 years. We had massive fee increases. You mentioned the green energy mandates. We had light rail. He brought Common Core to Minnesota. I could go on down that list of specific policy differences, but I think the bigger difference is the bigger picture. Are you going to actually make fundamental generational change to government or not? Because I really believe if we don't change these agencies and this culture, it doesn't really matter as much who is governor, because you can make some changes, but then 4 years or 8 years later, when the Democrats take over again, they just switch it all back. And we know that won't happen with Tim because it didn't for 8 years, and I can guarantee you it will with me. with respect to Donna, so Donna Bergstrom is my running mate. She lives in Duluth. She's a former lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps Reserve and is just an amazing woman, and she is of Native American descent. And, I don't know the specific details on, although I know she told me that she tried to get on a show, I think up in Duluth, that was about people of color in the state. And because she was a Republican and a conservative, they wouldn't let her on, which is, that's just kind of par for the course, I think, for the left. There is this assumption that anybody who is different, people, whether it's people of color or people of a different religion, they just have to be liberal or something's wrong with them. And I think that's changing. And, I see it as I travel around the state. People are starting to set aside these political labels and say, you know what, maybe I should rethink what my parents and grandparents told me I had to think. That's really encouraging for us.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the call. I think we might have another call. John, I'm fielding the call right now. So Jeff, along those lines, you bring up a good point. The differences between, and one of the big things is Dan ready, John? All right, let's go to Dan in St. Paul. Dan, welcome to Lee Michaels Live.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I just like to say when the election comes up, if you make past primaries or whatever, I plan on voting for you.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you a question. What is the direction of the Republican Party to preserve the foundations of morality and spirituality in this country? Because from what I see, everything is being done on a temporal basis until the next president gets in there. And, I see the Republican Party going in a direction where it has a very, very short shelf life because there's nothing being set up in government to preserve the foundations of evangelical individuals in this country. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I have this discussion a lot on the trail. I'm a Lutheran, not an ELCA Lutheran, but a Lutheran. And my Christian faith shapes every discussion I have and every decision I make. And some people have a problem with that. I had a discussion with a young woman at the state fair who said to me, because you are, so proudly speak of your faith, that makes me uncomfortable with you because you shouldn't be able to, instill your religious beliefs on me. And my response was, we all have our set of values. We may get them from different places, but we all have values and they drive all of us. And, my religion teaches me some really good things that people should be happy if their leaders had that. I believe in forgiving other people. I believe in helping the most vulnerable people in our society. I believe in good works and doing things for other people. And, I think people should be excited to have active and outgoing Christians in government. With respect to kind of that bigger question of where are we headed as a country and where are we headed as a party, everybody's going to be different and every leader is going to be a little bit different. It's not something that I'm afraid to talk about. I grew up as a Norwegian Lutheran in northern Minnesota, so we didn't wear it on my sleeve. It was growing up, it was kind of, you don't talk about Jesus with other people because it might make them uncomfortable. But, as you grow up and as you have different experiences, at least for me, I became much more comfortable with it. And part of my job as a Christian is to share that with other people, and I will share that as governor as well. And let me just add one more thing. When we talk about values and morals, I think the one thing that concerns me the most, frankly, it's less about government. It's more about our education system and our public schools. And I see and read about what some schools in some suburban areas in particular are doing with respect to indoctrination of our kids, both political indoctrination and indoctrination about religion. And we need to be concerned about that because the political beliefs of our kids today is the political beliefs of our leaders in government tomorrow. And I think we need to push back on that pretty hard.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Dan. I agree. When you're standing up for religious liberty, we kind of hinted at that last segment, is very important. We should have We shouldn't be ashamed. We shouldn't feel we have to pull away from it. But I agree with you 100%, Jeff, when you talk about the values that we as Christians hold dear are really pretty good values that you would want to have in a leader who is looking out for others, looking out for the best interest of the state. And I'm really glad you're able to join us today. And I know we've just got about a minute or so left here. Is there anything else you want to add that we didn't touch on in the last two segments?
No specific issue other than just to encourage people to vote, to take a look at the candidates. It's Tim Pawlenty. I'm the endorsed Republican. Tim Pawlenty's running against me in the primary. Early voting has started, so people can actually go vote at their city hall today, or they can vote on the 14th, August 14th, which is Election Day. And, I just argue I am the conservative alternative, and if you're looking for real change in government, that I'm the guy, and I would love people's support.
Yeah, well, Jeff, I've been praying for you. It's just it's been a pleasure. I thank you so much for coming on, and looking forward to the run-up to the primary here, and hopefully we'll have you back on at the state fair, and we can really get into the issues because we'll know who your challenger will be at that point.
I would love that. Thanks, Lee.
All right. God bless you, Jeff. Thank you.
And you.
You bet. There you go.